get started. I'm going to pull up my screen. And I am going to log into Command. Okay, so Roxanne, this one is for you as a very first step, and we can always touch base on this offline if you're not set up with it today, because there can be a couple little steps involved. But what you're going to want to make sure is that your DocuSign account is connected to your Command account.
And it's not, so that, okay.
Yeah, so no worries there. What you're going to do, and you can give it a shot yourself. If not, like I said, we can touch base offline, and I'll help you set it up. When you log into Command, in the upper right-hand corner is going to be your name. And if you click on that, you're going to see there's a drop down. There's going to be one that says Settings. And so when you go into Settings, typically it'll appear usually at the top if you are connected, but you're going to see that there is an application to connect your DocuSign account.
Okay,
so,
stupid question. I'm in KW Connect.
Okay.
Where am I going from there, since I haven't used this? I don't see it.
So are you in this kind of Connect? Let me see if I click into it here. Does it look a little something like this?
No.
Are you on kwconnect.com? Is it?
Yes,
possibly?
yes.
Okay, so you're going to want to go to the URL. It's going to be agent.kw.com.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yep. And then you'll log in to Command that way.
Okay, sorry guys, I just want to make sure. And then I'm going into Settings. Makes sense. Okay.
Yep. And then let's see, does it show, are you connected to DocuSign? You might already, you might not.
It doesn't look like I am.
Okay, all right, so no worries. All you'll have to do, there's going to be either a button that says Connect Account. Basically from there, they will send you a verification to your email. You'll have to type in a little code. It's just a couple little back and forth steps. It's not hard at all, but everyone's been different so far. Let's put it that way. So
okay, so I already sent through. I already sent it in, connect it, and see what happens.
Perfect. Yeah. So you'll get a code to your email. It'll have you accept it. You will create a login password. And then you'll just come back into Command. You'll actually connect. It'll say something like Connect Account. You'll click on that, and then you should be good to go.
Okay.
Yep. But like I said, we can touch base on that because I've had plenty of different issues with that. So
okay, no worries.
Yeah. So that's going to be the most important step, is just making sure your account is connected. Once it is connected, let's start from the very beginning. Let's decide here and now. Let's say you are working with let's say you're working with a buyer. We'll do a buyer example today. It's going to be pretty much the same, whether it's for a buyer, whether it's a listing, whether it's a tenant. The process is always going to be pretty much the same, but this will just kind of help us streamline it a little bit. So what you're going to want to do very first thing is, if they're in this case a buyer, you're going to want to add them to your contacts. Now, Roxanne, I always preface this with everyone: you do not need to use Command in any high level to do this. I'm not even telling people to use the rest of Command. It's basically just this portion that I'm walking through is all you're going to need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into my contacts tab. And then once we're in there, if you already have this person entered into your contacts, great, you won't need to do this step. If you're adding them for the first time, you're going to want to come into your contacts, and in the upper right-hand corner is a button that says Add Contact. That's going to pull up this contact card, and all you need, absolutely the only bare minimum of what you need, is their name and their email address. That is all you need Obviously, if you have more information, great, highly recommended to plug it in, but if not, just name and email. So let's see, let's come up with a name for today. Let's say our buyer is, I've done too many John Smiths. I was Michael Myers the other day. Let's use Michael Myers as the example. Okay, so let's say our buyer is Michael Myers, and we'll type in his email. Right there. Oops. So again, just name, just email. I'm not worried about anything else. You're just going to scroll to the bottom and you're going to hit create. Okay. Let's also say, for argument's sake, that you are working with a client. There's two buyers, two sellers, whatever the case may be. For each individual person, you will need to add an individual contact. So for example, let's also say that Michael is married to Michelle. That might get confusing, Michael and Michelle. Let's do, I don't know, Susan Myers. And let's say her email is, I'm really in the Halloween mood here, everyone. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I've done so many different examples. I've done Fred Flintstone. I did Elon Musk. I'm really reaching here. But okay, so in that case, we have Susan Myers, we have her email, and I'm also going to hit create on that as well. So great, we added our contacts. Now, in order to start the process and to access the paperwork, you're now going to want to select whoever you're going to have as kind of the first person. So in this case, since I used Michael first, I'm going to search for, if I can spell it, Michael's name. You can just search for the name in your contact card here. And it should, again, come right up. So what you're going to do is you're going to search for that person's name, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to click into their contact card. So you'll see when you do that, kind of two sides to the screen here. On the left-hand side is kind of that contact information. So we have the person's name. You'll have their email. If you have a phone number, it'll appear here. And again, just any other information that you add for this person. One point to note, if you need to change anything at all, there is an edit button right here. You can edit any information. What we're going to want to do now is we're going to essentially create an opportunity for this contact. The reason for that is because by creating the opportunity, that's kind of what starts that process in our system for you then to access the paperwork. And of course, then, submit your documents for compliance and fill out your green sheet and all that fun stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an opportunity for that individual. So on the right-hand side, you're going to see there's kind of a timeline of options here. There's timeline, opportunity, smart plans, all that good stuff. We're only going to worry about opportunities. So what you're going to want to do is click on opportunities. And if this is for a new person, great. They're probably not going to have an opportunity just yet. Chances are down the road, as you work with some folks more than once, you can create multiple opportunities for them as well. Essentially, that just means different transactions, different buyers, sellers, whatever the case may be. So today we're going to go ahead and we're going to create an opportunity. I'm going to click on that button. And that's going to pull up this window of options drop downs that we're going to have to complete to start the opportunity. Most important to note, anything with a little red asterisk with it, that's all we're worried about today. That's going to be required for you to create the opportunity. So we'll just go ahead and we'll walk down this list. First off, we have Market Center. So that's always going to be, the Bernardsville Basking Ridge Market Center. Again, hopefully that'll be the case for everybody. If you don't see that, let me know. Next to that, we have team. So this will really only come into play for those folks on the team. Actually, Roxanne, this might be a good question for you in this case. With the way that your command was set up, are you an individual agent? Or are you part of or set up as part of the team?
Individual agent.
Okay. All right. So in this case for you, that won't really, it won't apply here. That'll actually be grayed out. Again, if someone is part of a team, you would be able to select that drop down and select whatever the team member is creating that opportunity, essentially. So usually I don't worry too much about that if everyone's just operating as an individual agent. So in that case, nothing you need to do there. Under that, we have opportunity type. And so in this case, you'll see it's going to give you 4 options: listing, buyer, landlord, or tenant. And again, pretty simple for today. We're going to, I think we said we were going to do buyer. So we'll do a buyer. The owner, again, that's always going to revert to your name. So that should always have your name there. And then below we have client. And in this case, because we are doing a buyer, it's co-buyer. So because we're starting this off with Michael himself, he is the first client. It will also allow you to add in, again, a co-buyer, co-seller, anything like that. So in this case, since we added Susan, let's go ahead and add Susan as a co-buyer. So in order to do that, all you have to do is click on that drop-down. We'll type them in and Susan will appear right there. So again, nice
Sam,
thing
can
about
I
that,
ask you real quick, why do I have context in here already that I don't even know?
So that could be a multitude of things. It could be when your account was set up. I don't know if anybody uploaded any at any point, you know, when they were first setting this up. If you've ever run a Facebook ad, or if people have ever clicked on your app, or you know, your KW website, anything like that. Sometimes that lead information will automatically enter into your command.
Okay, so, I'm deleting them because they're so old.
That's fine.
I'm archiving them. Okay.
That's fine. Yep. And you can archive them. You can actually fully delete them. It's an extra step, but yeah, even in the meantime, archiving is just fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we have our client, we have our co-buyer. Next, we have our opportunity name. So that's, again, basically just going to fill out with whatever information you've typed in already. So in this case, Michael Myers, buyer. You can name this whatever you want. I know everyone has their own, you know, kind of system. So typically, you know, I might just change this to something a little more, you know, a little easier for me. Maybe Michael and Susan Myers, buyer. And then I don't know, I might put today's date. Again, that's only something you're going to see. So feel free to name it whatever you'd like. There's a couple below here we're not going to worry about. They're not required. That includes custom tags, estimated close date, time frame, and budget. Again, great if you have that information, you can put it in, but it's not required, and we're not worried about filling that in at the moment. You will have to fill in these last 3. One is going to be commission rate. If for any reason this changes, this can always be changed later. So typically, again, I'll just drop in that 2.5%. Again, just needed to get this transaction started. Can always be changed later if and when that occurs. Below that, we have opportunity phase. And by clicking on that, you're going to see that's going to give you 3 options. There's going to be cultivate, appointment, and active. In addition, there's opportunity stage, which includes watch, nurture, and hot. In the simplest way to explain this to everybody, chances are if you're coming in here and you're trying to access DocuSign, you're already in the process of, you know, submitting an offer or putting in a listing or whatever the case may be. So what I've been telling people is when you click on these options, just go ahead and select active for opportunity phase. Again, you're actively accessing the paperwork, you're actively going about doing it. Same with opportunity stage. Again, it's really not going to matter so much what you select for either of these. That has more to do with the opportunities tab itself. So what I'm just telling everybody, go ahead and select active and go ahead and select negotiations. you're as far as you're really, taking it at this point, if you're actively, accessing the paperwork, so to speak. And that's about it. That's all we're gonna have to do. And then we're gonna click create. Before I click create, any questions from anybody?
No, all good.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and click create. And you'll see that that went ahead and created that opportunity. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna click on that opportunity. And that's now gonna take us from the contacts section of command to the opportunities section. Right here is where you'll do most of the work in command. This is kind of the central hub where you will ultimately, again, submit your documents for compliance. This is where you will now go to do, the newest version of a green sheet, which I will kind of teach more specific classes on those once everyone is kind of in and, using DocuSign fully, because that's a whole next step for some folks. So I will teach that later this month. But in the meantime, I want to get you comfortable with accessing the paperwork. So while we're here on this screen, just to kind of quickly explain what everything is, everything that you see here. In the upper left, you will have obviously what your opportunity is called. It'll show you who those folks are that are assigned. And then it's going to give you a couple drop downs, a couple tabs right here. For the most part, really truly the only things that everyone's going to be using more or less for, while you're getting up and running and getting used to this new process, you will use the details section, the documents section, and the offers and commissions section. So I'm going to explain details first, and then I'll just quickly touch on offers and commissions, and then we'll move over into documents, which is where you'll go to access your paperwork. In the details tab right here, you're going to see there's going to be some general information. Again, this is just very high level. If you want to add any more or change any information, you'll see there are a couple little pencil icons. By clicking on that, that'll open up a new window that'll allow you to make edits to any of that information. What's nice is the more information that you have populated here in this details tab will feed automatically into your DocuSign documents. So if you have that information, great, fill it out. If not, no worries. You can also fill it out once you get into DocuSign as well. So that's really all there is to the details section. Again, pretty straightforward there. Offers and commissions, I will click into this real quick just to kind of explain what this will be used for. Moving ahead a couple steps, let's say you're up and running in DocuSign. Let's say you've worked with your buyers, they've submitted an offer, they got it. Yeah, it's time to submit everything and it's time to do your green sheet. Essentially what you'll end up doing, you will come to this offers and commissions section. You will add in a new offer, and then from there it'll open up with some windows that will then have you fill out that information for your green sheet. Again, that's a couple steps down the road, but just kind of know in the back of your mind that you will be coming to this offers and commissions section to kind of finish the transaction. Okay. And now for the most important part, I'm going to click into documents, which is where you will spend the bulk of your time. So when you first come into here, there's going to be a couple things that I want to point out. So to start, on the left-hand side, there are essentially what are a couple checklists. So if I click on this drop down, let me do this, residential. And click on that. There we go. Okay. So on the left-hand side are going to be some checklists. And the way that these checklists are set up, they're very similar to the ones that we already have in dotloop. So if you click into, whether it's again for a listing or you're working with a buyer or whatever the case may be, we have those checklists, and I think I actually have one printed out just for everyone's reference. Yeah, a little sloppy, and I don't know if everyone's going to see it, but oh, my stupid virtual background. Probably a bad example, but I do have a checklist here that can be found in Dotloop. And essentially what we did in setting up this side of command was took exactly what's on that checklist, exactly what's required to submit, and created that same checklist here in command. So for example, if we're working with a buyer, a lot of it's going to be some of that general information. But again, whether it's the CIS, the contract, seller's disclosure, whatever that information is, whatever is required, we'll actually have it checked off, so it will say required. I'm again jumping a little ahead of the curve here, because you really won't need to worry about this section too much until again that time comes when you're submitting the documents to the MCA office for review. But just important to note, on the left-hand side, there are going to be those checklists that will show you everything that you need. In order to do that, there will be a button here that says attach files. We haven't created this in DocuSign yet, so it won't appear just yet, but you will be able to click this button. It will sync up with your DocuSign account, and you'll actually just be able to click and drop the file right in here and ultimately submit to the MCA office. Again, I'm going to teach these classes in more detail once we get probably a little later in the month, once people are really using it. But I just wanted to show that to everybody right now, so you guys have a rough idea. Any questions? I wanted to touch on that very quickly because I want to spend a bit more time in DocuSign. But any questions at the moment? Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, what we're going to do then is we're going to head over into DocuSign and we're going to access the paperwork. So if you've created the contact, you have created the opportunity, you click into documents, and there is a button right here that says start a transaction. And so in that case, chances are all of you are just going to see DocuSign once it is connected. I know we ran into an issue with Chris the other day where there was an issue because Dotloop was connected. You're going to click on DocuSign. And then from there, it's going to take you over into your DocuSign account. Important to note, if you're logging into DocuSign for the first time in a given day, it will require you to sign in. That's just a security feature. Once you sign in once, it will keep you signed in for the rest of the day. So important to just remember that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and sign in. It's going to ask you for your email and then your password. Okay. Once you do that, you're officially in DocuSign. Again, for everyone's knowledge, the best way that I've been teaching it, trying to explain it, essentially in Dotloop, you would create a loop. In DocuSign, you're creating a room. So again, some of this information will be the same. It's just different terminology, different names for certain things. So again, just important to note, really get comfortable with going into DocuSign and creating a room instead of a loop. Once you are in your room, which again, if you log in this way, it should take you right into your rooms. Chances are you don't have any documents in your room just yet. I will show you guys how to do that here in a second. But just to kind of explain everything that you see here at the moment, you will have obviously access for a dashboard, your inbox, and your My Docs. Don't worry about any of that. Again, I'm not going to focus on any of that at the moment. You won't need that for what you're here to do. So you're going to spend most of your time in the rooms section. Once you're in here, it's obviously going to have the name that you created from command. It's going to show right here at the top. It's going to give that an ID number and show a date that it was created. And then below that, you're going to have a couple different tabs again as well. Very similar to what I had just mentioned in Command. The only buttons here that you're going to want to get comfortable with, and really the only ones that you're going to use to get started, are going to be Details, Documents, and then ultimately Envelopes. And so the process for that, and the way that I'm going to walk through it for this next half of class, I am going to walk through and explain details. Once you fill out your details, we're going to access the documents. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pretend to fill one out. And then from there, what you're going to do, in order to send it off for signature, like you do in Dotloop, you are going to create what is called an envelope, and then you're going to send it off to your client. And again, Roxanne, if this is new, although I'm covering a lot, it's going to be the same kind of process every time, regardless if it's a listing, a buyer, etc. So typically you'll fill out your details, you'll access the documents, and you'll package them up in an envelope and send them out for signature.
Okay.
Yep. So let me go ahead. I'm going to click into details. And for most people, whether you're brand new, whether you're a brand new agent, or you've been in the business for a while, whether you're new to DocuSign or not, this detail section is pretty similar to what you already do in Dotloop. When you go in to fill in the contact information, some of the property information, any of those little details, the more that you have plugged into this detail section here will feed into all of your paperwork. So just taking a quick look, you'll see if I scroll down, it gives you all kinds of information. You can list the sellers, the property location, offer details. Down here at the bottom, we'll get into, I think, the buyers. If I keep going, yep, buyer number 1, buyer number 2. So again, a lot of information. Highly recommended. Save yourself some time and some trouble. Fill in as much of this as you can. So in order to do that, in the upper right-hand corner is going to be a button that says Edit. And as soon as you click on that, that makes this whole entire sheet fillable. So you'll see we have all of these different boxes that you can fill in. Also important to note, if for any reason you change any of this information when we go into the documents and we start filling out some of that paperwork, if you change it on the document itself, it will update in this details section. So again, just good to know, if for whatever reason anything changes, it will also change in this details section where we're at now. So in this case, I'm not going to fill everything out. I'm just going to fill out a little bit so you can see how it populates on the documents. But let's go ahead and say, let's fill out a little more information for our buyers. So I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom. We have buyer number 1. We have Michael. Again, I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and drop in some placeholder information. Let's say Michael currently lives at 123 Main Street, Basking Ridge. We'll put Susan's info. Again, they both live at the, we'll say they live at the same address currently. Okay. And I don't know, let's go ahead and say, let's fill in some of the property information. So let's say they are buying, let's see, 555 Spooky Lane. And we'll do Morristown. So again, I'm just kind of filling this in just quickly, just so we can see what it's going to look like. I don't even know what the zip code is. That's fine. Again, just filling some of this out so you see where it gets populated when we get over to the documents. Let's say we've got the contract amount. Let's say it's for 650. Let's say 650. Contract date. Sure, let's do today. You know, again, if you have any of this other information, let's say we'll drop in a closing date. We'll put Christmas. Okay, all right, that's going to be enough. Again, I just want to show you some high level info here so you see how it pulls in, pulls into the documents. So once you've filled in everything that you need to or want to, in the bottom right hand corner, you'll have the option to either cancel or save. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay. And that's about it. Any questions with the details section? One of the easier parts to be able to figure out. Yep, and Fernand, I just saw your message. Yes, I will be posting these. I have to get up a couple classes from last week as well. So I'm gonna hopefully get those up probably by first thing tomorrow morning. So I'll be sure to send that to you.
Sam, does it make sense for us to just go in and play with us as a client, buyer and listing? Okay.
Yeah, and actually that's a perfect point because when I announced to the office, you know, go in and start using, that's one thing that I always recommend. Because you know, we end up telling new agents the same thing with Dotloop. Go in and fill it out for your best friend. You know, get comfortable with the documents, get comfortable with the process, with the, you know, the setup for it. So yeah, definitely recommended. And then you can basically take it as far as, you know, send it off for signatures, all that good stuff. You can always archive or delete rooms just like you could in Dotloop. So, okay, all right. So we filled out our details. Now let's head over into documents. Okay, here's where the fun begins. So basically, if you're creating a new opportunity, a new room like we just did, chances are you're not going to have any documents in your room just yet. So what you will want to do, in the upper right hand corner again, there's going to be a button that says add, and you're going to go ahead and click on that, and that's going to give you a drop down of options. Good to know if you have any documents saved to your computer, or for example, let's say you get sent you know, a letter from the attorney or whatever the case may be, kind of like you already do in Dotloop, you can manually upload those documents as well. So if you need to add those documents to your room to keep everything together, if you click add, you can select computer and then just upload those documents manually that way. In order to actually access the paperwork, instead, you will click on DocuSign Forms. And that's going to go ahead and pull up this window of options. So Roxanne, this might be a spot where, again, if you're doing this for the first time, once we connect your DocuSign account, typically when people get to this point, a pop-up will appear and it'll ask you to enter your NERDS ID number. Super easy. There's even a button that if you don't remember for whatever reason, you can just click it. It'll help you track that down. But what that does is that gives you access to all of the paperwork for all of the MLSs, NJAR, you know, all of the files and the paperwork provided by those MLSs. So,
okay, Sam, can I ask you, is Monmouth on there?
Great question. Yes, it is.
Excellent.
Let's see. Yep, right here.
Okay, and are all the forms current? The contracts, the newest of the stuff?
Another great question, and I'm happy to say finally yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So I'll actually explain the differences here, because you're going to see there's going to be two sections. There's going to be one called groups and another called libraries. So the best way to think about it, libraries here at the bottom, these are all forms that are provided directly by, again, those MLSs, you know, NJAR. So in that case, what's nice about it is because we are connected, you'll always be working with the most up-to-date, newest form. across the board, whether it's for a contract, whether it's an addendum, whatever the case may be. We will always have those most up-to-date forms ready to go in here, and they're already pre-filled out. They already have all the placeholders in there as well, so nothing will need to be reformatted. So those should be good to go. Having said that, most people, actually almost everyone, will start off in this groups section. And so essentially what these groups are, we actually labeled them exactly as they were in .loop. So when you go to create a loop in .loop and you get to select whatever that template is, we named everything here in these groups exactly the same. So whether it's buyer docs, you know, CJMLS listing docs, GSMLS listing docs, referral, tenant, etc., we kept all of that the same. So in that case, since we're working with buyers, I'll click into the buyer documents group. And that's going to pull up essentially, and I have it right here. Again, I don't know if you're going to see my little cheat sheet. But what we did is we took exactly what was in .loop already, all of those documents that were in there, and we put them in the buyer documents group. So same thing, regardless of what you click into, whether it is the buyer docs, the GSMLS listing docs, the Monmouth Ocean docs, everything will be in there as per what it is already in .loop. The only difference, and I know this is a part that still might cause a little bit of confusion at first, when you click into these groups, some of the naming conventions of those documents may take a minute to kind of get used to. The way that everything is named, you're going to see here on my screen. If I click into buyer docs, there are going to be some documents that say KW825, NJAR. Let's see. Since this is a buyer one, there's really not too many, but for example, if I click into, let's say it's for a listing instead, you might see some that say GSMLS, KW825, NJAR. So some of the documents we're unable to change the names of, and that's because we pulled them right from the library. So if the document came from the GSMLS library or the NJAR library, that's why it's actually going to say what library it came from ahead of that. So it doesn't change too much. You'll just have to look past that. So for example, if I'm in the buyer documents, you know, we have NJAR, addendum regarding COVID, lead paint disclosure, here's the contract of sale, etc. So the naming convention may take people just a minute or two to kind of get used to. Same for the KW825 forms. So I am able to change those on my end. There are still some that I do have to change the name for. So for example, I know this is one that needs to be corrected. We have a form in here, KW825. It's actually just the seller's disclosure waiver, but this was uploaded way before I got here. And for some reason it says Central Jersey, seller's disclosure waiver, seller. Some of it is just very clunky. So I have to submit those changes to DocuSign for them to make. So just note, some of the forms may be worded a little weird, but most of them should all be the same as you're currently using in .loop. So everything there should be okay and ready to use. You can always rename them once you add them to your room. Any questions with that, Roxanne? I always run into a lot of questions when I get to this part. Hopefully that was a pretty straightforward.
No, it's fine.
But again, the nice thing though, at the end of the day, the nice selling point is you'll always be working with the most up-to-date form, again, because they always provide the most up-to-date version. When you do click into these groups, one other thing to point out, you'll see some forms will say required. Again, that's just based off of the checklist that we had in .loop. So whatever was required to fill out, to submit, will be listed as required here as well. So let's say in that case, you're ready to fill out your paperwork. You have two options. You can either check off everything and add everything into your room just so you have it, or you can check off just what you need or what's required. It's completely up to you. You can always add everything in and remove stuff later. you know, completely up to you. So for the purposes of today, let me just click off what's required, and I'll go ahead and hit add selected. Okay. So once we do that, you're going to see it drop those documents into your room. What I recommend, because I'm a visual learner, once you drop everything in, go ahead and refresh your screen. Because what that'll do is it'll refresh the documents that you just dropped in, and you'll actually see, you'll get to see a little snapshot of what those forms are. So again, just again, I'm a visual learner. I love that little feature. I think it's great. So I wanted to show you guys that. Okay, let's go ahead and fill out the contract. Let's use that as our example. We'll fill it out. I'll show you how to do it. We'll send it off for signature, and then actually then we'll have covered just about everything I wanted to cover today. So once you drop in your documents into your room, if you need to add more, again, of course, you can always go back and add more. They are going to be organized in alphabetical order. Again, just good to know. You can always sort and organize those based on however else you would prefer. But let's go ahead and fill one out. In order to fill out a form, basically all you have to do is click right into it, or you'll see there are little check boxes in the upper left-hand corner. You can check off those documents as well. By doing that, it actually opens up a little tab of options here at the top. And this is just good to know for the moment. So by doing that, checking off the document gives you the option. You can either make copies, you can move them, you can email them off. That's basically just to email off for them to receive a copy. It's not to fill anything out. There is one for create envelope, which we will return to here in a couple minutes. Obviously download, you have archive, and then delete. So just good to note those options here at the top. But let's say we want to go ahead and fill one out. I'm going to go ahead and click into the contract, and we'll use that as our example. So again, all of these documents should already be pre-filled out. If for any reason they're not, let me know. Again, I know that we're going to have a couple of these little things to work through, so I'm sure there's some out there. As far as I could tell, most, if not all, actually, as far as I can tell, all of them have been filled out, but I'm sure there's going to be a couple of instances. In this case, though, you'll see we have it filled out. And if I start scrolling down, you'll see that some of that information that we put into the details section, it's already populating into the document. Good thing to note right at the top, the one difference between Dotloop and DocuSign, you're going to see that there are not any placeholders or any boxes for the signature fields just yet. Those will actually be, those will actually show in the last step when we go to send everything off. So just note, there will not be any boxes for signatures on any of the documents when you're first filling them out.
Sam, are you able to force signatures in and text boxes like you are on Dotloop?
Yeah, and actually, I don't know, I may be the outlier here. I tend to think that it's much easier in DocuSign than it was in Dotloop. The only thing to note with that, if you need to add any text boxes or any field signatures or anything like that, you won't do it until the very last step, right before you send it off for signature.
Okay.
But when you get to that point, I tend to think it's a million times easier. So
Okay.
yeah. So for the most part, when you get to this step, this is where you'll just add in any of that information that you have. Again, you can add it into the details section like we were doing, or you can manually add it in here as well. As I had mentioned, if for some reason any of this information is incorrect or you need to change it, you can also change it as well. If you change it on here, it will update in the details section that we were in. So in this case, again, I know I didn't fill out too much, but for the most part, I'm not going to walk through too much of this. This is, just going through the process of filling out the entire contract. Basically, I just wanted to show you how that information would show up. And again, in this case, if I type in just to show you a couple other numbers, it's as simple as that. All the boxes should be there, should be formatted, and you should be good to go. Any questions with the documents? That's actually pretty quick and painless when you get to this step. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead then. I filled everything out. I'm gonna go ahead and hit save and close. And so you'll basically just do that for all of your documents. Anything that you need to fill out, you can just click into them, fill it out, and you'll hit save and close. Let's say we've gone through everything, we filled everything out. It's time to send it off for signature. What you're gonna do is you're gonna check off either, again, that document or those documents. You can check off one, you can check off all of them. It's completely up to you. When you do that, it opens up this tab of options here at the top. And as I had mentioned before, we are going to go and we're going to click on create envelope. That's going to really be the last step of this entire process. So by doing so, it's going to take you to a page that looks a little bit like this. The best way that I've been teaching this and explaining this to people is as simple as this. Let's say we're all you're all here in my lovely office together. We're filling out the physical paperwork as we just walked through. We're filling it out in our room. We're now going to take our paperwork, fold it up, stick it in an envelope, and send it off for signature. That's kind of the thought process behind DocuSign and the way that they name some of these things. So when you get to the envelope section, that's basically it. You're stuffing the envelope, you're going to send it off, and they're going to sign it. So in this case, we're going to just walk through this. First, right off the bat, you have envelope name. That's always going to say, please DocuSign. That just lets your client know that, hey, I need to fill this out. You can change that to anything you would like. If you want to put the property address or any more detail, you can fill that out and update that there as well. Next, it's going to show you either all of the documents that you checked off to put in the envelope. If for any reason you have any documents here and you need to add more or you forgot one, you can click Room Docs. That will take you back to the room and you can add in any others. There is a button here. This is more of DocuSign 2.0, but Roxanne, this is good to know. You can actually set up templates. So if there's a certain document that you fill out the same way every single time, and you don't want to have to keep doing that, you can actually set a document up as a template, and you would then just be able to drop that template right in here. So it'll save you the time and hassle of having to fill the same thing out time and time again. I teach a separate class on that one just because that is a couple extra steps. But yeah, so I like to set everyone's expectations. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you're in there and once you take the time, once you set up these templates and things like that, this really does become a 5 or 10 minute process. So, because again, you'll get comfortable with it. You'll have those templates. It just speeds it up for you. So, okay, so we added our documents. I'm going to scroll down. Now we're going to add our recipients to the envelope. So by doing that, I'm just going to click on this add recipients box. It's going to give you a couple options. Again, for those who are just getting started with this, chances are you're always going to select the first one, which is pre-tagged roles. It'll also allow you room participants and email addresses. I'm not worried about that at the moment. Most people aren't going to run into that just yet. So go ahead and select pre-tagged roles. Now, what this is going to do, it's going to open up this new window, and it's going to have 3 columns. It's going to have role, it's going to have documents, and it's going to have recipient. So documents, of course, it's always going to have whatever those documents are that the individuals will need to sign or fill out, or that are part of your envelope. So since I have those 3 documents, it's going to show those 3 documents. But in this case, let's say we need to send it off to our buyers for their signature. So I'm going to check off buyer 1. I'll check off buyer 2. Let's see. Let's pretend I'm the buyer's agent, or in this case, if you're filling this out, you might be the buyer's agent, whatever that information is. So you would check off who that role is. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see there is a recipient button. And this is where it allows you to select who you're emailing it off to. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and buyer 1 is Michael. So there's Michael. Buyer 2 is Susan. We've already got their information in here. Buyer's agent, again, that would be myself. So I'm going to go ahead and select on that. One important thing to note, this is one part that I'm still working on getting added in here. I know it's been a question that many people have had. We do also, if I click on this, you'll see that there's the option for Rafaela, and there is also an admin option as well. So that's part of the MCA office. That's part of the compliance side of things. You'll always see that those 2 emails will be there for recipients. I do also need to add in Sally as well. So you will see one eventually for Sally to check off as well. So again, just keep that in mind. But for the most part, it should be as simple as this, just selecting who you're going to send to and who's going to sign. So that's all I have involved at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and hit add selected. And that's going to drop these folks into my envelope. Unlike .loop, where you had to check off the permission, whether they fill and sign, whether they fill or view only, you don't need to worry about that here. All of these folks will only have the access to fill out whatever is required of them or sign what is required of them. If you need to change that though, you can click this drop down and you'll see it will allow you to select whatever you need. So if they just need to view, maybe receive a copy, etc., you can check that off here as well. For the most part, to start, everyone will just be good to go once they drop their recipients in. Last but not least, at the bottom here, you also have the option to add in a message to the recipient if you need to. Again, that can be something as simple as, hey, here's all the paperwork, please sign out. If you have any questions, give me a call. Simple as that. Once this is all good, in the upper right-hand corner, you can either hit save and close if you're not ready to send it just yet, maybe you're holding off, or you're going to go ahead and click on next, which is what I'm going to do. And that's going to take you to the very last step. So Roxanne, as I had mentioned, this is kind of the part that I like. It'll take people a little bit of time to get used to, but this is kind of the last step. Let me go ahead and click on the contract. Let's do the contract here first. So what this does is it kind of takes you to a last step here. It's going to show all of those documents that we had checked off that they need to either fill or sign. And in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see there's going to be a drop down for all of those individuals, and they're going to be color coded. So in this case, buyer's agent, let's say that's me. You have your buyer and co-buyer. So if I check off Michael's name, for instance, you'll see that all of these options turn blue. If I scroll down on the document, it's going to put in all the fields that buyer number 1 or seller number 1, whoever needs to sign. So in this case, Michael is blue. Michael is ultimately going to sign and date here. Scrolling down a little further, if there's initials that need to be signed in, same thing. If, let's say something's missing and you need him to provide some information, on the left-hand side, you're going to see all these different options. You can drop in a text box. And it's a little easier to format than .loop is. So you can click and drag and adjust. The nice thing about DocuSign is if I drop in a text box like that, if he types and it's a long sentence, it'll resize accordingly. So you don't necessarily need to click and drag and adjust and that whole thing. It'll actually fill it out accordingly based on what they provide. So, that's for a text box. Same thing if we need to get another initial for some reason, you can drop that in, signature, same thing. And so basically the nice thing about getting to this last step is you can see what that individual is going to see. So for Susan, for example, if you need to add in a text box for her or a signature or an initial for her, you'll just click on her name and you can drop in whatever you need. In order to see what it's going to look like for them on their end, if I'm clicked into Susan, there's a button in the upper right that says Recipient Preview. And so you can actually see what it's going to look like for that individual. So when Susan gets sent this, let me scroll down to the contract. Susan's going to sign right here. She's going to initial here, etc. Now, because I just added a couple text boxes and a couple spots to initial for Michael, if I click over into Michael now and view it from his end, and scroll down a little bit, you'll see those boxes, those signatures, those initials that I dropped in are going to appear for him and him only. So thankfully, it becomes as simple as that. So if you get to this point and you're sending something off and it doesn't have a signature box or it's missing a text box of some sort, you can always manually add it in at the very last minute if you need to. So I tend to think that's a great little feature. Again, just makes it a little easier once you get to that point. So pretty much once you get to here and everything is filled out, you see the signature boxes, all you're going to do is hit send. It's going to go off. They're going to get an email. They'll open that email, and just like Dotloop, it'll have them go down the list. It'll tell them where to sign, where to fill, and they will submit it and send it back to you. With that, you'll get notified. You can set up your email preferences to be notified as soon as they submit it or send it back. And the nice thing is multiple people can be in the same document at once. So if you're sending this off to both buyers, everyone can sign it on their end and you will get the final document back with all of those signatures. So you won't need to worry about making edits or anything like that. Those individuals will be able to do that on their end. And like I said, you'll get the finished document.
So Sam, where are you adding an attorney if you want to send the documents to that person or the listing agent or the buyer's agent?
Yeah, great question. So if, let me go back one step. Whoops, I might have gone back two. Okay, so if you need to do that, you can add them here in your envelope. So one option that you have when you go to add a recipient, chances are, again, in this case, great example, they're not going to have a pre-tagged role necessarily. Maybe for the listing agent, if you entered their information in the details tab or something like that, they may be in here as a pre-tagged role. But if not, if it is an attorney that hasn't been part of the transaction at all yet or anything like that, you can either invite them to the room, which will give them access to more documents, or you can manually add them with their email address. So chances are, I would say, go ahead and add them as an email address. And then right here, you can obviously type in their name and their email. The only thing you'll need to do then on that part is when you get to the last part where we're filling out the documents, if there's a section that they need to sign, you may just have to assign that signature box for them. But otherwise, if they're not assigned to anything, then there's going to be nothing for them to fill out. They'll just be able to view the documents.
You don't think it has more steps than, to me, it has more steps than Dotloop.
It does have more steps. I won't argue that. Some of them, though, once you are kind of set up with it, again, once the growing pains are kind of over, again, like I mentioned with like the templates, there's some information that can be set up so you always have it. Similar to how it works in Dotloop, how some of that information will manually pop up when you start entering their, if it's someone you've worked with before, that information will start to automatically pop up. Same thing with DocuSign. It's just kind of getting in there and getting some of those, some of those documents, up and running. So some of that will start to populate in once you use it a little more.
And when is it supposed to be activated? When are we supposed to be using it? And is
So-
anyone keeping .loop and paying for it?
Yeah. So we are switching at the end of the year. We are setting a goal of having everyone starting to use it December 1st. That way it buys us a little bit of time. Different than things in the past, thankfully your loops and your .loop account won't be going away. Our subscription will just be ending with them. So with that, we won't be updating forms. The MCA office won't be going in there to check for compliance or anything like that. So you can continue to use it. You can continue to keep it. Everyone will still have access to all their documents for at least 6 or 7 years. I forget what the exact date is, depending on, based on the law. But with that, the only thing with that is we're not going to, again, be actively updating it, going in there and checking. We're going to kind of be phasing that part of it out. So if you still need to send anything off for signature, though, I'm not telling everybody this, but I will absolutely tell you this. You can have the option of having them sign it in .loop. You can continue to do it that way. But what you will unfortunately have to do is then essentially upload those documents into Command to then do the compliance portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and ultimately fill out the green sheet and things like that. So more or less, it'll kind of just be closed down, and we just won't be using .loop. Won't be checking it. So
I'm going to be a realist. I know some of us do business in December and January, but the majority don't.
Yeah.
So it's going to be still a challenge, especially when people aren't doing the business.
Yeah. And that's kind of, we're one of the last few offices to make the transition, which is good. We've been able to learn from others' mistakes, hopefully. But having said that, some offices have given their agents a year-long heads up, and others, others, they've given them a year. Others, kind of like us, we decided we'll give them a couple months. And then to your point, we're always going to have those people that they won't have a transaction until April, and this will all be new for them then. So, I'm kind of just working with people on a one-on-one basis when it comes to that. And, we'll be here, I'll be here. Thankfully, you're not losing anything. Nothing will get shut off or shut down necessarily. So that hopefully gives people a little sense of comfort, but it is a new process, and everyone learned .loop, so
you learn
in time. Everyone will learn DocuSign.
Everybody will get through it. That's correct.
Yep. So, but I will say everything that you just saw today, though, that really is the full. That's the bulk of the work that we just went through, and I covered a lot. So.
Yeah, I think you have to play with it. So I'll start working on that.
Yeah, and like I said, definitely recommend send it to a friend, a family member, whatever the case may be. Do a test run, and then from there, some of it will become. It really does become repetition after a little while. So, yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
no problem. And if you want to schedule a one-on-one or anything like that, just let me know, and we'll put some time on the calendar.
I appreciate
absolutely.
it. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Then in that case,
appreciate your help. Enjoy your day.
I will. Have a good one. If you run into any questions or to connect your account with Command, just shoot me a note and I can walk you through that. I'll send you.
I'm good. I think I'm already connected. I'm good. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.